right, welcome everyone to today's episode of Expert Investor. And I have the privilege of bringing to you Richard Canfield from Wealth Without Bay Street. I tell you, Richard knows a ton, and when it comes to not just real estate but business in general, Richard really has a lot figured out. So I think you're in for a great episode today. And I promised Richard, I said I'm not going to read your bio. We're going to do something a little different because your bio will have been seen all over the place. So we're going to start by asking Richard, what should we know about you? What do we need to know about you that you don't talk about in your bio and that you don't talk about everywhere?
Well, it's not mentioned that I'm standing on a treadmill right now. Now, for the purpose of our recording, I won't be using it, but I do a lot of walking meetings because, the wonders of modern technology. We meet with people over Zoom or Zoom equivalents, and I've been pretty much been doing that for the better part of 10 years. But in the last 2 years, I've been spending a lot of that time walking. So if I can't get up and go do the meeting outside in the sunshine, I got a walking pad, and so I spend a lot of time walking in meetings while in front of the computer, and it's a great way to get my steps in. I have a goal of doing over 3.6 million steps this year. I'm well on track with my goal. In fact, I think I'm going to kick it up a notch, but it's a great way to be able to still meet the need of meeting with people all over the country, all over the United States as well, while still being able to maintain a little bit of physical nature. I'm a very kinesthetic person, so I like to use my hands a lot. You may think about some of those shows where the person's like, what do I need to do with my hands? And the hands keep moving. So I like to have a lot of fun and engage in that nature with the people I meet. And my partner Jason and I, we've written a few Amazon best-selling books. We have another book that we are in process. I have a manuscript to go over actually for our fourth book that we're tentatively releasing in June. It's called Don't Spread the Wealth. It's all about keeping the wealth in the family and not sharing. It's not about not sharing it. It's about changing who you're sharing it with and just keeping the wealth and all of the capital in an aquarium where it stays within the family line. So that's the primary premise of our new book that's going to be launched in a couple months.
Oh, I'm excited to read that because your other ones are great too. Now, you come at things from a bit of a different perspective because you are a licensed insurance agent, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So you help people, you help real estate investors, but other people as well, get into the infinite banking concept. Can you explain that quickly for people before we sort of head off in our business direction?
Yeah, I guess I'll try to do the Coles Notes version. We are all dealing with money flow. Money comes into your hands and then it goes out of your hands. Usually, in the going out of your hands part, it goes to all the other people: the bank, the car loan guy, the mortgage guy, the food, the grocery people, the things that we purchase. The tax authorities. Everyone else is getting your money. You're handling the money. In the process of that, there's this thing called banking that happens. Banking is about the movement of money from one location to another. That process is something that we teach people how to take control back over so that we can optimize money through this thing called the infinite banking concept that was developed by my mentor, R. Nelson Nash. And we now funnel that through a machine, a system, a vehicle that allows efficiency on the continued growth and accumulation of that money so that you can be well capitalized for when opportunities strike. That's kind of the summarized version of what the infinite banking concept is all about.
Yeah, I love that. And it's such a different perspective to talk about, we are really just money managers and banks, help us manage the flow of money. I think a lot of us don't think about money like that. But it definitely makes a lot of sense. And one of the big challenges that people are having right now in the world of real estate is I don't know who to trust with my money. I don't know who to place my money with. I don't know who to pay. How do you figure out who you can trust? Because you've been an investor for almost 25 years now.
One of the things that uh, I was always resonated with me was having some measure of autonomy or control over my life and my decisions. Um, that's what originally one of the things that originally attracted me to investment real estate. And in fact, the very first piece of real estate I was involved with, I was dragged into by my parents, and I was about 12 years old at the time, and we bought a suited rental property in Camrose, Alberta, which is the town I'm from. And over the following 6 years, while I was going through middle and high school, I would often have to go and get off a bus home and then drive into town. And I was, doing some kind of a renovation project, painting walls, fixing drywall, moving appliances. There was one time we rented to a family and they had a dog named Goliath. Goliath destroyed the yard. I had to reclaim the yard. I shingled my first roof there. All these lessons. At the time, it was not fun. To be fair, a lot of it still wouldn't be fun today, but I didn't recognize the value of the lesson. I wasn't aware at that frame of mind. What all I saw was the work, the work, the work, the work, the work. We're working hard. I'm doing all this work. What is this work for? I didn't understand what the value was that was being done because the lesson wasn't properly conveyed to me at that time. In reflection, looking back years later, I recognize what was all that value. All the value was the skills I learned. I learned, hey, I learned what I didn't want my real estate investing life to be like. I realized, hey, maybe I don't want to deal with tenants in that way. Maybe I don't want to maybe I can pick a better tenant profile. There was all these like cumulative lessons that were created in that 6-year time frame that I couldn't see. They were happening to me. They happened to me, but I couldn't understand them. So what that teaches us is that knowledge doesn't really mean anything without understanding. You can know a lot of information. You can learn things. You can have trivia knowledge. But if you don't have any understanding of it, it's relatively meaningless. Okay. Some people would say that knowledge is power. Well, I disagree. The application of knowledge that you understand can become powerful. It doesn't make it powerful. If you don't apply it in any way to your life, it's completely meaningless. It's just a bunch of knowledge. Or maybe it's just a bunch of memories. So having a chance to reflect back on things, and something that my mentor Nelson Nash, teaches, his fifth golden rule is rethink your thinking. The word ruminate comes to mind. Ruminate means to basically think upon your thinking. And when you have a chance to do this in different areas of your life, in your investing area, think about a property that you've owned. Think about whether it was a primary residence or something that you went from a primary to a rental, maybe it was a multifamily, whatever that property was, and think about some of the challenges, the problems, the quote unquote horror stories that came out of that. What did those lessons teach you? What did you learn from it? Did you find better connections? Did you find better relationships? Did you think about financing things differently? Did it led you to realize, hey, these are criteria that I would no longer rent to those individuals on? Or maybe you learned about how to go through residential tenancy dispute resolution service or something to that effect. So what are all those cumulative lessons? And then how did they shape and change the decision-making process that you had going forward? If you don't have a chance to take time to reflect on where you've come from, it's harder to picture where you want to go. So the clearer that you can crisp up that vision of where it is that you want to go with your real estate business or any financial goal, whatever that you have, the simpler and easier it is for you to hit those targets.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I call them rules of engagement. And this is basically, what does success look like for you? So you might have rules of engagement around your life, for example. So you say, in 25 years, I want to be sitting on a beach. I only want to be in Canada 50% of the time, and 50% of the time I'm somewhere where it's warm and sunny and I don't do snow anymore. And you might say, I have the money to fly my kids and my grandkids out 3 times a year to join me wherever I am. So that might be your rules of engagement for the future. One of the things that we fail to do well, I think, as real estate investors is to set the rules of engagement for what a good deal looks like. And instead, we're just constantly looking for quote unquote opportunities. And then we're trying to go, okay, does this opportunity make sense? Does this opportunity make sense? But we haven't set any standards for what success actually looks like right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think further to that is like there's many, 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 many different ways to invest in real estate.
Mhm.
And people, because the term is real estate investment, the term isn't real estate business ownership. And because we use the word real estate investment, we associate the act of buying a property as the act of investing. When the reality is, when you own that property, what you've really done is you've bought a miniature business,
Yes.
regardless of the size of the property. And if you want to get more of them, that means you might need clients. Well, your clients are both tenants and future investors, future capital partners or private lenders. These are contacts that you need in your database to be able to grow a business in that environment. But because like the brain is a funny thing, it takes words and we have an immediate association with the word. Yes, it has a Webster's definition, But our brain will just muddle everything up and put it through our own filtering process and say, oh, well, this is what that word means to me, right? And so the word investment, just separate real estate out of it. So investment. Well, that's the objective for money to grow, but it also comes with the risk of loss. You can't separate those two things from one another if you're truly investing, versus if you have the idea of savings. Well, savings is money that you don't want to risk or don't want to lose, and that's there when you need it. It's liquid and available. How do I know that? Well, I used to do seminars with people, and I've probably asked that question to no less than 2,000 Canadians and got them to put their hands up over, the better part of a decade. Well, what does savings mean for you? And then we write it on a board. And what does investment mean? And we write it on the board. And the themes over all of those experiences were ridiculously common. So that tells me, hey, we've hammered something home. So the word might mean something different to you, but when we look at an aggregate basis of people, we can get really clear on what that word means for most of us. And a business requires a different way of thinking than just an investment. An investment is just something that we just do it, and we often kind of set it and forget it or whatever. It's not really actively managed. So you might want to put it in the passive category. Well, if I go and buy something on the Toronto Stock Exchange, I don't get to jump in and drive down to that business's building and go start telling the CEO what to do and how to run the business. That's pretty passive. I don't have any relationship or control in that environment. But on the piece of real estate, I can tell the contractor what color to paint. I determine which contractor I hire. I determine which tenants I let in. I determine which property manager I hire. I determine which lawyer I use to go after back rent. Like, all of those are decisions that are within my control. So you have to think about a business. Are you growing a business? What does that mean? What does that actually look like to grow a business? And when you get clear on what's happening, your mindset shifts as to how you're going to go about doing the action steps. If all you're thinking about is real estate investment, you're not thinking about growing a business that I'm going to have and manage for the rest, for over the long term. The difference in the actions that you take are they're almost extreme. So, people wouldn't, typically, you're probably familiar with a lot of like multi-level or network marketing type businesses. Elizabeth, I'm sure you've seen those. I know I'm sure all of your listeners have been involved or seen one at some point in time. I used to tell people when these would come up and they would get so fired up and excited because they get sold on the big dream. I said, well, if this was a real business, if you think about it like a franchise or something, if you had to come out of pocket with $50,000 as a down payment on that business so that you can buy it to be able to actually turn it into something, would you still proceed? Or is you only doing it because it's a $500 entry point? So
Yes.
your thought process on the risk and the allocation of your time and your effort totally changes the dynamic. And I think in real estate investment, it's something similar to that. Yeah, we see deals and we see opportunities and we can look at a pro forma, and we're always making these judgments based on a pro forma. But then you actually got to go view the property, or you need to have someone with boots on the ground to confirm is what I'm seeing on the spreadsheet the same. I don't know about you, but I've seen some spreadsheets that have lied to me in the past. The math might have been right. It might have been calculated correctly on the cells, but when the spreadsheet and real life didn't line up, I would say that that's a bit of a lie, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. At the very least, it's a lie by omission.
Right. And so if you aren't adept at building your skill set, your business acumen, your filtering process, your way of being able to have a defined radar to sense things properly that are on that spreadsheet or in the deal itself, it doesn't really matter how many deals come by if you don't understand how to really truly recognize how does that deal relate to you at the time frame that you're at and the vision and the goals that you have. And is it a part of your system? So you're 100% long-term buy and hold. Cool. Maybe you're 100% multifamily and you're looking for a certain cap rate, certain size of building, and you're in a geographic area. So some people don't care about the geography. Some people do. Some people don't care about the type of property. Some people do. Some people are only up, down suited duplexes, right? Whatever your niche is, now if a deal comes your way, if it doesn't fit your niche, you should probably pass on the deal. Doesn't mean it's a bad deal. It might mean that that's a good deal for someone else. And if you think it's a good deal, maybe you can pass the deal on. Now, do you have to get a fee for passing the deal on? Or do you pass the deal on because you want to help somebody out and you want to build relationships? You want to build rapport because maybe that person will come back and invest with you one day. So there's different ways of doing it. There's not one way that's right or wrong. What's wrong is looking at it as a silo of I got to check every deal that comes in. No, you need to hone in on the deals that are relevant to you so that when you see the deal that matters, boom, you can make a decision at rapid fire speed and you can move capital, either yours or OPM, someone else's, to get that deal moving forward. So you're not wasting time on all this, Mickey Mouse decision making process. You have to tighten that filtering process up. The sooner you can do that, the more you get your time back. You know, they're going to build more houses and they're going to renovate existing houses. They're going to even knock down existing houses and build new houses. So new houses are always going to be there and people are always going to need a roof over their head. But you know what we can't replenish is your time.
Mhm.
You can make more money. You can get a raise. You can buy more things. You can invest well. You can lose a bunch of money too, but you can make more money. What you can't make back is time. So the most important and precious thing I think that the real estate business owner needs to be aware of is how are they managing their time resources. We have so many resources, people resources, knowledge resources, technology resources, physical resources like tools. I'm actually pretty decent with some tools. I like using them. That's part of what makes me tick. Every like twice a year, I go through like a mental breakdown where I have to go and physically build something or I'm going to snap. It's a weird thing that I have to do. I literally did it like 2 weeks ago. I built some shelves in my garage. I can't help myself. I have to get that urge out of me. But not everyone is like that. So that is a skill set though. Those are all resources that you have. Someone else has a whole bunch of resources that might differ from yours. Where your deal or your business is lacking in one of the resource categories, find someone else that's got it. Find a who. So Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, amazing mentor. I'm a member of Strategic Coach, a fantastic organization. And he wrote the book, Who Not How, the power of who power. Our brain often thinks, how am I going to get this done? How will I do this? Change the how to a who. Who's already done this? Who can do this for me? Who might I need in my team to get this accomplished? If you start changing the way you ask questions, you might really like the answers that you find.
Absolutely. I feel like being an investor, and maybe it's social media, or maybe it's just my sort of evolution as a human being, but I feel like there's a lot of scarcity right now. There's a lot of pressure to, I have to analyze every deal. I have to find, there must be an opportunity here. And there's just a lot of protectiveness and a lot of kind of scarcity mindset that I'm seeing. Is that something that you've seen in the real estate investor space?
I think, so I work with a lot of investors and it's hit and miss. Where I see that scarcity appear is mostly because of past decisions that aren't working out in present climate. So I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. A lot of people who have variable rate mortgages and rates have gone up drastically. And now their cash flow, which used to be really good, is no longer existent or it's gone negative. So, Nelson Nash, who was my mentor, he created this idea of the infinite banking concept primarily because of stress in life. And during the early 80s, he owed $500,000 on an open line of credit for real estate development. And it went from 9.5% to 21 to 23.5% almost overnight.
That's a lot.
What did not make the story in his book is that they had a big development going on in Birmingham, Alabama, and one of the partners in his partnership was one of the biggest name lawyers in the town, and that guy bankrupted on him. And Nelson and a partner had to eat that guy's share of the deal. Nelson's share was 300 grand, so it was actually $800,000 that he owed at 23.5% interest.
Oh, that is
Now,
painful.
picture yourself in 1981, 1982 under that circumstance. If you do the inflation math, that is close to about almost $3 million worth of today's money. So I don't think there's too many people who are listening to this program that will have experienced that level of, let's say, increased prayer life. Okay. That'll drastically increase your prayer life, is what Nelson used to say. And it was through those moments of prayer where he was able to realize, hey, you know what? I've gotten myself into a pickle here. I need to drastically change the way I'm thinking about how I'm running money through my life. And I need to get rid of the snakes and dragons. That's what he called the bankers. And I can get access to money over here at 7, 8, and 9% at three different life insurance companies to pay these guys out. The problem is I don't have enough in there. I haven't been building up and capitalizing my resource enough so that I can take money from there, a system I only control, to get rid of these guys where I have no control. And it took him 13 years to fire his bankers. But it wasn't just, it was the change of his behavior and his thinking that was the real catalyst. That was what made the change. Sure, he made more income, a lot of other things shifted, but nothing changes if our mind doesn't change first. Okay. It's all about mindset. And why do I bring all that up? It's these real estate investors that I've been connecting with that are on variables, or they're having challenges, or they had real estate values that were going up in Ontario and now all of a sudden they're not going up anymore, they're going the other direction. They're feeling a squeeze because they've never maybe been through a market cycle before. They got on the
Absolutely.
bandwagon when everything was good, and now they haven't seen a market cycle. Well, Elizabeth, you and I were chatting the other day. I've been through some market cycles. Now I'm from Alberta. I live in BC now, but I've been through a pretty decent Alberta cycle, and I've got some pretty good, war stories. I'm still bleeding from some of the wounds, you could say. And when you've experienced loss, both financial and other forms of loss, then you can now speak intelligently to it with other people who have not yet experienced that. And what I find happens is that people often discount and they don't listen to the stories and the life experience of others. They have mentors and coaches and stuff, and they hear and they maybe listen and they say, I get it, I understand, but they don't actually understand. They're using words that indicate that they do, but you don't truly understand until you experience it. Experiences are the great equalizer. And so, that type of impact on your cash flow and your real estate business when the real estate changes and the lever, everyone says that leverage is good until the lever goes the other direction, right? That's
Yes.
what's happening. And that's what happened to Nelson. So all the gurus that were there training about real estate back in the late 70s that he was listening to, oh, leverage, 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 it's going to fix everything. And then the lever went the other direction and it didn't fix anything. It actually made everything worse.
Mm,
So everything is relative, and it's relative to the market climate, your circumstances, your knowledge base, and your resources. Now, resources can be skills and a lot of those things I mentioned, but it can also be capital. Capital is a resource that needs to be treated well. If you don't have access to any capital because you've been using everyone else's, now you're going to be in a bind. And so that's putting a squeeze on people. And that squeeze, it makes it harder to kind of think outside of the pressure of the squeeze. And that brings up more scarcity because there's a feeling of what's going on. It's hard to break free from that. It's an emotional connection that people make. So, there's no like easy wins here. The thing is you just need to consider changing your behavior. You need to change the questions. Instead of how might I fix this problem? Who else has dealt with this problem and fixed it before?
I love
What
that.
else, what else might I be able to do about this problem that I haven't yet considered? You know what? I'm going to brainstorm all the ideas I can. And as soon as I'm done with my brainstorm list, I'm going to bring a new question to my brain. One of my favorite things I learned from a guy named Blair Dunkley, and he was a profiler. And he would say, so what else might I do that I haven't already thought of? Okay, write all that down. What might I do specifically? So it's one thing to write down general ideas. Now, what might I do that's specific? So when you ask your brain these intentional questions, your brain is a powerful computer. It's going to give you the things that you ask it for. If you ask it garbage questions, you're going to get some pretty garbage results. If you don't like the results
Absolutely.
you're getting, you need to change the questions that you're asking your brain. I'm guilty of it. I've asked some dumb questions, and I'm probably going to ask some dumb ones in the future too. But I don't stop there. I keep questioning. I keep asking. Do you remember Curious George?
Oh
Little
yeah,
monkey,
absolutely.
always getting into trouble. Well, I ask people to develop a mindset of Curious George. If you have abject curiosity about things in life and your real estate practice, or why things are happening the way they are, if you start changing your questions, you're going to get to the bottom of it so you can know what to do next. And I think everyone needs to be innately curious to figure out how they can solve the problems that they're in. If you want a bigger, better, abundant life, then you need to be surrounded by bigger, better, abundant people.
I like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if someone comes to you right now and they're talking to you about challenges and they have, they're upside down, they have negative cash flow, what kinds of things would you be recommending for them based on your business experience and what you've seen? Because there's not as many people around who've come through 2008 like we have. So what were your big, I guess, lessons or takeaways from it?
So a couple things is how attached to you are you to like the portfolio or properties? Sometimes people get emotionally connected to things like maybe a tenant relationship, as an example, or a
Mm,
specific property. Maybe you used to live in that property with your family and like you brought your firstborn home there and now it's a rental. So there can be these emotional connections that are tied. And sometimes it destroys our good sense decision making process. It's like, well, that property, hey, it's got a really nasty loan on it. All of a sudden, it's negative cash flow. I'm feeding $400 or $500 a month into it all of a sudden, and I used to be cash flowing $500 a month. Now, I mean, I'm just holding out to see what's going to happen with the interest rates. Okay, so you're working hard somewhere else to help solve this problem. You don't want to get rid of it. How long can you do that for reasonably? Have you considered that? Have you considered how long you can make that worth? And when is the juice worth the squeeze? At
mm,
what point do you need to be pulling the eject button? Some point you're going to have to do it. Do you know when that point is? If you haven't figured that out, that's a pretty good starting point. Find out when the eject button needs to be hit. And if you know, okay, that's 36 months from now, great. What's going to happen between now and 36 months from now that you can do proactively? Can you raise rents? Well, I'm in a market condition where I'm not allowed to do that. Okay. So the market doesn't allow you to do that, but have you thought about just approaching the tenants and asking if they're willing to do it anyway? What if the tenant
mhm,
agrees, even though it's not part of the, if they sign a new contract, if they agree, maybe that's okay. So I actually had a client that did that and they were successful at that because they hadn't raised rents for several years. They one to one went and had a conversation with good tenants, long-term tenants, and talked to them about raising rents. And they were concerned about doing that because there was some feelings of, well, I haven't been doing it and they're good people and I don't want to squeeze them. Well, sure, maybe you don't want to do that, but meanwhile, you're the one taking the squeeze. So, spread it around a little bit. The result is they were able to improve cash flow and diminish the burn. Rebalancing some of the portfolio. Can we do an equity takeout on one of these here? Can we look at restructuring a loan? Hey, what if you have other resources that we could pay out this one mortgage that's almost gone, and then all of a sudden that frees up $2,000 a month that now covers some of the burn on all of the other properties across the portfolio. So like, there's lots of levers to pull, but you got to start asking the right questions. And if you haven't been able to solve it yet, then maybe you're not the right person to solve it. You need another who in your life that's objectively looking at it that can see things you can't see. The expression "you can't see the forest through the trees" sort of a
mhm.
scenario. So in our own life, we have these blinders on in certain areas that we just simply can't overcome until a new set of information and data gets entered into our brain. Often that's best served by another human being.
Yeah. And I think that's the value of, podcasts and YouTube interviews and that kind of thing, because if we stay in our own brain, then we're always thinking our own thoughts and we need new information. We need new perspectives. We need new insight to be able to tackle some of the challenges and the problems that we're seeing nowadays.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I enjoy podcasting personally. I love doing it and I love having wonderful conversations. I get the benefit of being able to just have the conversation initially, but I also listen to a ton. As much as I enjoy doing the podcasting itself, I thoroughly listen to many of them. I like learning new things. Now, I'm a little bit weird in that I listen to almost everything at two times speed, and I do it while I'm multitasking a little bit. Not everyone is built for that. I actually am, according to my Kolbe Index. By the way, that's another thing I'd mention. If you're in a position where, again, scarcity versus abundancy, just not sure what to do, spending some time to working on you. So I'm a big advocate of I don't want to call them personality tests. I think that's it's like a category. There's lots of different ones that are out there. There's several that I like. I'm actually a big proponent of the Kolbe A Index. Kolbe Index isn't a personality test. It measures your instinctual way of doing things. When left to your own devices and given a problem, how will you actually go about solving that problem, which is different from another person? What are the steps that you would do first? And so my Kolbe is a 3297. I'm very high quick start energy. I'm also very tactile and physical. I like to build things that are durable and that last, and actually use my hands a lot. But I'm a very low follow through person. It doesn't mean that I don't follow through. It means that the way I follow through is different than other people. I'm not going to be like staccato checking the list. I'm going to look at the list in aggregate and I say, what are the things I can smash out in 30 seconds? Let's knock all those off. And then let's look at the ones that I can do in 5 minutes and knock all those ones off. And then so I just look at the list differently than everyone else from that perspective. So the more that you understand how you operate in the world and how you get things done and accomplished, the better positioned you are to not only, I think, seize opportunities that show up for you, but to understand if that opportunity is right for you, not just based on the math on a spreadsheet, but based on how you actually go about the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat. Because we spend a lot of time talking about disc and personality types, but quite honestly, a personality type doesn't always dictate, how you approach situations, how you solve problems, and how you take action.
Yeah, and Colby is basically a measurement of how you take action fundamentally. And DISC is great. It's a lot of these are overlapping. Some of the ones, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, that are more like personality oriented. Personalities shift and change. You've known people all of your life, and some of those people aren't really, maybe they don't show up the same way as your memory of them is, right? So personalities can shift and change. I believe that mine has over my lifespan. But what hasn't changed is my way of doing things. How I go about doing it hasn't changed. The way I may interact with people has changed. And so another one that I'm a big fan of is Clifton Strength Finders or Gallup Strength Finder. There's a book called Strength Finder 2.0. I find that one to be very, very helpful. Another one that I really like is called the Kairos Cognition Report. It's Kairos, Kairos Cognition Report. It helps identify areas like selective versus active listening, selective versus active reading. Are you an active mover or less an active mover? So, like as an example, I'm a highly active mover. My brain actually processes information and amplifies its capacity to learn by moving. So by sitting still, it equates to moving towards sleep mode. Literally, it's like, push the button, boom, Richard just went into sleep mode. So I actually, I get my best mental prowess when I'm actively moving. And now that I know that about myself, well, what do you think I do? I I got it. I've started this thing talking about the treadmill I've got on. Well, if I can maintain my physical movement and energy, my synapses fire better than if I'm sitting still. Not everyone's going to be like that, but I am. And if I don't know that, well, how does that help me accomplish my real estate business? How does that help me in anything that I do? How does that help me in my family relationships with my children, with the people I love and care about? Like, it doesn't help anybody if I don't know about it.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to there's so much information out there. Like you go on, Instagram and let's say you pick something like, I don't know, I want to become healthier. I want to start exercising. And there's a million different people and a million different perspectives. And it can become overwhelming trying to sort through all of the different options and the different opinions and the different ideas. And I think you've really highlighted the importance of you need to know yourself because what works for you is not necessarily going to be what works for someone else. But you, by unknowing and understanding who you are, you're able to optimize your work performance. And you're not sitting there, listening and going, oh, if I'm, this guy on social media told me I need to get up at 4 a.m. and start my day then because that's how he works best. So having that understanding of who you are and what success looks like for you and what the optimal conditions are for you to create that success really enables you to be able to pick and choose what looks like an opportunity and what's going to fit for you with your lifestyle and your vision and goals.
I think that's a key observation, and it also circles back to like coaching. So like I have multiple coaches, as I know you have, and I've had many in the past, where I've always found that I get some of the best success. I always get insights. I always get insights, but sometimes the best success or direct actionable things that work for me is when someone frames it in a way that they know I learned the best. It's not how they learn the best, it's how I learn the best. And
Yes.
they recognize that I need to get things done quickly. I need things done in a now environment. not in a I'm going to do it next week or I'm going to put it off till tomorrow environment. And so not everyone fits that description. And so when you can tailor or customize some of the quote unquote advice or direction that you're getting from you, I don't really think coaching is about advice. And in fact, I don't think people should ask for advice. I think it's personally, I just think it's a silly question. Stop asking for advice. Ask for context. Hey, here's my situation. I'm not looking for advice, but I'd love to get some context from your experience, because
Mm-hmm.
now you're actually getting what you're asked for. And fundamentally, that's what advice is, because people can only advise you from that which they know. Well, what do they know? They know what their experience tells them, knowledge that they've learned, or actual boots on the ground experience. That's where almost all advice comes from. And if their experience and their life is ran differently, they're not investing in real estate, or they've had nothing but failures in real estate, and you're asking for them advice about how to fix your real estate portfolio, probability is you're not going to get the advice that you're looking for, right? It
Mm-hmm.
might be good context. You might be able to learn, tell me more about how your real estate portfolio failed. What were some of the things that went sideways along the way? So I can say, did I do any of those? And am I about to make any of those decisions? There's a big difference. So you can get education from anybody, both good and bad. The difference is how you interpret it. Maybe they had a bad experience. That doesn't mean it'll be your experience. Rather, that I would rather take their experience, learn about it, understand how it happened, and then I can have a measuring stick that helps me maybe navigate the path a little bit better, so that I don't land on those tripwires that they did.
Yeah.
I was blessed, by being the youngest in my family, to be able to see things that older siblings and older people did. And I was an observer. I would watch and see what older people did. And I would say, oh, well, that didn't seem to work out very good. Based on that, I don't really think I want to go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know I was doing it. It wasn't until much later that I understood that's what I was doing. But I was actively looking for, oh, wait a second. I don't think that that's going to work out very well. And it didn't. So I'm just going to go a different direction. I'm going to try something else, because clearly that one didn't seem to work so well. And, if you can recognize that from the mentors and the coaches that you have, again, the podcast that you're listening to, you can start to frame a pretty good direction as to how you want to go about doing things. But if you can't get clear on what you want your business to look like, what your niche is, you're going to spend all your time wasting it, frivolously on things that don't matter, looking at more deals and opportunities. If you don't have any capital, okay. Nelson Nash, my mentor, he used to say that if you don't have if you do have a readily available access to capital, opportunities will track you down. In fact, they will hunt you down. What does that mean? Readily available access. So you either have cash in the bank or liquid available money to put into deals. It's either yours or it's OPM, but you can get to it quickly to close on a deal. So if you don't have that set up, it's going to be hard to do deals. Now, you've probably heard this before, Elizabeth. Hey, find the deal and lock the deal up, and the money will follow. But
Yeah,
that
Robert
is
Kiyosaki says that in Rich Dad Poor Dad.
that is also true, and for a lot of people that works really, really well, because what ends up happening is their motivation goes up because the deal's locked up. It's not that the money will follow, it's that they take the necessary action steps to have the money show up. They talk to more people, they pick up the phone more often, they network more, they show their deal off to more people because the deal is real. So that has to do with how people do things, how they learn, their instinctual way of getting things done. Whereas for many people, they might be better off just having the money available, and then all of a sudden the right deal shows up so they can capitalize on it. So just because one person says this is the right advice doesn't mean that is for you. Recognize what makes you tick more, and you'll recognize what to do more. But fundamentally, you can't fund deals unless there's a funding source. And if you're not the source, you need a source. And if you're not actively looking for a source, maybe you should start.
Mm-hmm. So would that be your recommendation right now for people who are sitting at home, or they're sitting in their car right now and they're listening to this and they're going, I don't know what to do right now. I see these people on social media, they seem to be finding deals. I can't find any deals. I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to begin, which investment model to choose. Is that what you would recommend for people to do?
I would say you need to find out what questions are you asking yourself. If you're saying things like I can't find deals, then you're right. You're telling yourself what you can't do, and therefore you're right. Stop doing that.
Mm. Yep.
How about, I can find deals, I'm just not sure where I should be looking right now. The difference is you're still not finding any deals, but now you're changing what your brain is up to. I can find deals. Great. Positive affirmation. I'm not sure where to look. So what would the follow-up question be? Maybe I should spend more time thinking about and asking questions about where I should be looking for deals instead of, complaining and moaning about how I can't find any. One of those
Hmm.
is destructive and one of those is abundant. What
Yep.
track are you going down? What questions is your brain telling you? Change the question in your brain and you will immediately begin to change your results. And if you're not good at doing that, find an accountability partner who is. Start asking them better questions, and you'll notice that the quality of your questions also goes up. And likewise, so will theirs. See who is in your circle, who's a who that can support you, not with money, but with discussion, with the ability to think through things differently. Have a sounding board to talk to. Um, you know, just because you're not finding deals in your area, is it because it's not the deal that you want? Is it because you're looking for multifamily and all the multifamilies are scooped up? Okay, well, what have you done to find deals? Are you looking in a new marketplace? Have you researched a new marketplace? How tight is your radar? Are you looking all over the United States? Or are you looking in, as an example, I don't know, Phoenix, Arizona? Or are you looking in, Moncton, whatever? Like, what is your zone? I was a licensed realtor for many years, and always get people to say, "Oh, find me a property that fits all this stupid criteria that I've got." Cool. Well, let me enter that search into MLS, and several of the things you asked for, I can't enter anyway. By the way, even if I entered them, there's a good chance that the realtor that put the information in didn't check the box of what you wanted. And so
Hmm.
even though there's a property that fits that description, it will now not show up in your search because I checked this box off. A lot of people don't know that, by the way. So if you have bad data entered, you could only search for what's the data is available. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
so if you're a real estate investor and you're looking for things and you want to understand what a good deal is, well, if you don't know the target area, so let's say you want 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses that could be easily suited that were built between 1965 and 1985 because you like the structure and you know that they've got bigger windows and that you have a contractor who, if they don't have big windows, they can chop out 1.5 feet of concrete and put an egress window in there. Then you like ones with detached rear garages and back alleys, and they were built in this time frame so that you have another possibility to create a third suite or rent out another unit that you can control your cash flow better. Let's just say that's what you want. Am I getting specific enough yet?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And now you know that you don't like the tenant profile of, as an example, Northeast Edmonton. Let's just say, I used to live there. So, and I also lived in many other areas of Edmonton, but maybe you don't like the tenant profile there. So maybe you shouldn't be looking in that area. Maybe you should only be looking in this zone where houses were built in that time frame, where they have back alleys, where they have probability of double or single detached garages, and now you've tightened your radar. So now if you're getting searches about just those types of properties, do you think if you see 300-400 of those come up, you're going to have a pretty good idea which one's a good deal?
Oh, absolutely.
So when people say they can't find a good deal, I say that's bullcrap. You're looking too wide and you haven't narrowed your focus and you don't know what you're looking at. Change your
Mm.
criteria and get specific. What you lack is specificity and a lack of a niche. Determine what it is that you want, what you're ready to move forward on, and set your criteria around that. Stop asking other people to do everything for you. Oh, I just need to network with 4 or 5 more realtors and get them to send me deals. Hey, when was the last time you talked to a realtor and you just said, "Can you send me good deals?" Do you think that they've heard that like 400 times before? Come on,
Well, it's
like
also
give me
that's
anything.
also assuming that a realtor's idea of a good deal is the same as
Eh,
yours, and that
eh,
they know how to analyze deals and send you something that's a good deal.
And also, they don't even know if you can close on a deal because you never closed on a deal with them. So why
Yeah,
are they sending you something if you're not a closer? Like, I
yeah.
wouldn't waste my time with someone that does that. I'm busy. I've got a family. I got things to do. Why would I like? So Think about, are you asking other people to do things for you, or are you making deposits into a relationship? Bank accounts go up when you make deposits. There's this thing called emotional bank accounts. You make
Mm,
deposits with people. Try serving before you try taking. If you're a taker, you're probably not going to be very successful for very long, because the world's going to kick you out. At some point in time, you're going to get kicked right square in the nuts for being a taker. Stop doing that. How about being of service? If you put more service in, you're going to have a lot of great relationships, building up lots of emotional bank accounts. So when a deal does come up and you need help, or you need guidance, or you need a friend, or you need some money, or you need whatever, you got a lot of places you can go and ask for a withdrawal.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a great little book that I give my clients sometimes at Christmas called The Go-Giver. And it's all about how when you give, then you get. It's karma or whatever you want to call it. But the more focused we are on giving to other people and helping other people, then the more likely we are to get what we want and need in return. And even if it's not exactly what we believe we deserve, typically it's because there's something better out there and we just have to ask for it or reach for it.
Well, we had the pleasure actually of interviewing the author Bob Berg recently on our podcast. It was fantastic, and I love that book. I'm glad that you shared that. And so the mindset of a go-giver is very different, and it's not a huge or a difficult change, especially if you're in a good circle of people who are similar minded. Fundamentally, I think most people want to help other people. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you're going to be like, you're going to stop everything you're doing and just put everything down and go help everyone around you. But it does mean you could be a lot more intentional about
Mhm.
how you think about asking for things. You shouldn't just be asking for things haphazardly from people that you haven't first tried to do anything for. Consider how that shows up repeatedly, and is that going to help you achieve the goals that you want in life? I don't know anybody that goes through life alone. We all have people around us, good, bad, or otherwise. You're either in a good circle of people, or maybe a mediocre circle, or a not so good circle. And if
Mhm.
if you're not in a good circle of supportive individuals, or people that have some of the things that you want, Robert Kiyosaki also says that you're the makeup of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. So
Yeah.
show me someone who's struggling with their success, and then let's take a look at their calendar. Who are you
Mm.
spending your time with?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you devoting your energy? Are you spending all your time on the computer late at night, glued to the screen, looking at MLS listings? That might be a problem. Maybe you need to be around some different people. Okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Just like, what is it that you really want? So get really clear on a few things. I really think that people need to understand themselves better so they can understand their motivations. Get clear on their goals, get clear on their niche, get clear on the type of property that you want, so that when the opportunity shows up, you can actually recognize it. A lot of people, they have all kinds of opportunities that walk by them, but they don't even see them. They don't even know that they are.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, the quote about having readily available access to opportunities: the size and the quality, not the quantity. Probably also that though, but the size of deals, the quality of deals, and most likely the quantity will exponentially begin to increase when you are well capitalized. When you have a readily available access to money, the deal flow will begin to flow much, much easier. Okay.
Mhm.
If you're struggling to find money to fund deals, or you don't have any of your own left, it's going to get increasingly more difficult for you to find and recognize deals, because our brain is attuned to think, even though you might have investors and people lined up, if they haven't written you the check yet, you're
Mhm.
always still wondering, am I going to get the check if the deal shows up? So your brain is gonna like reduce its capacity about the deals, because it's always going to think, well, what do I have available? If I had to put the deal together, if I just had to do it, could I swing it? I can move from this line of credit and this, and I could use some of the credit card, and I can move money around so it's in my bank account for 90 days, and then I can do this, and then if I don't even have the investor, I could still close on the deal. And so you become like, you shrink the types of deals you're looking at unintentionally. Unintentionally. You don't even know it's happening, because your brain might not be prepared for the deal that actually is the good one. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you level up your opportunity fund, if you capitalize. So investment is the opposite of capitalization. Capitalization is building a reservoir of money so that you can use it. It's liquid and it's available. It's there for utilization. Investment is now after capitalization. It's you've utilized capital to do something and it's gone to another purpose. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So investment actually depletes capitalization because now you give up liquidity. There's nothing wrong with either of them. They're both fine. You need a balance of them in your life. But if you sacrifice all of your liquidity, you might also be making a catalyst of other things. So if a market, see, last time I checked, Elizabeth, you don't control the market, do you?
I do not, as much as I would like to.
Turns out, despite the Harry Potter magic wand that I bought for my kids, I can't control it either. All right.
Yeah.
So, so we don't control the political environment. We don't control geopolitical things happening in the globe around us, which
Mm-hmm.
all can have a direct impact on our real estate because it's all policy driven and what have you. We don't control the Bank of Canada's interest rates or the Federal Reserve interest rates. We don't control the money printing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't control the presidential election down south of the
Mm.
border.
Yep.
We don't really control the one here either. So like there's a number of things that are outside of our controls. All of those things on that list have a direct, although not immediately measurable or may not be directly measurable, impact to your real estate business if you're buying real estate. Both and it's going to affect geography differently. So as an example, Alberta's on fire right now. People are moving there in droves. Oil prices are up a little bit. The political climate's a little bit different. So it seems to be incentivizing some of that. Don't know if that's good or bad or otherwise, but regardless of where your leanings are, that's just what's transpired. Okay. And so does that mean it's a place to invest? Well, maybe it's worth consideration, but recognize those are a bunch of market changes that you didn't control. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen everywhere. So instead of figuring out what you're going to do in certain markets, why don't you get really clear about what you can control? Can you control how you capitalize? Can you control where you capitalize it? Can you control your own measure of liquidity, where you store that liquidity? Can you control your ability to research? Can you control what you're putting into your own brain, the books that you're reading? Can you control how you get clear on your family's goals? Can you control, like, those are things that you can do. You can't control the market. The market is going to always be there. And there's always going to be great places to invest and places that were great that now are pretty crappy. You don't get to make that call. So stop
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure it out. Instead, write down the list of what's within your control, write down the list of what isn't. Think about how am I minimizing the things that aren't and maximizing the things that are.
Yeah. I love that. Richard, thank you so much for your time. Your perspective, you're always so refreshing to talk to. You always bring a different mindset in, and then you just love to help people. And I appreciate that so much about you.
Happy to serve and hope this, lands and helps, the listeners out to make some positive change in what might be an otherwise uncertain world.
Yeah, it has been sort of uncertain. And I think part of it is, us as people looking at it and trying to fit ourselves into this person is living this life or this person did this. And, I want their results. So I'm going to try and replicate exactly what they've done. But like you said, there's so much going on that we haven't had control over. And it's way more important that we figure out who we are and live our life based on our principles and our success metrics than to try and replicate what anyone else is doing.
Well, and if I have the permission to just share one more thing, although I've been involved in real estate for 20 some odd years, 25 years or something, I can say it wasn't all sunshine and roses for Richard. And, to a large degree, going through up and down markets, I could say that I haven't probably generated a whole lot of money from real estate. However, the stories that I've learned and the experiences that I've created in that time frame and the relationships that I've created by being around real estate communities have actually turned into a great deal of revenue for me. So the way that real estate has been primarily profitable for me hasn't actually been from the real estate itself. It's actually been from everything ancillary to the real estate. That's just been my journey, good, bad, or otherwise. So, I'm not saying that that's advice for anyone. It's just what's true for me. And I want people to be aware and understand that you can have other things happen that are outside of what you might see in the deal. It doesn't show up in a spreadsheet, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And additionally, real estate or contracts or property can show up in other ways. As an example, I've written a couple books. We have another one I mentioned earlier coming out. Those books, they require an investment as well. The investment is, give or take somewhere between, let's say, $8,000 and $15,000, depending on the book, and having some editors and team and ghostwriting and some book design and all these other things, plus some of my time, no different than a piece of real estate. But it's a lot less than a down payment on a piece of real estate for most real estate. And they'll generate a cash flow somewhere between, typically $200 to $400 a month for me. At least that's been my experience so far. Maybe it won't always do that, but that's what's been happening so far, which means for me, I can look at the ROI on that very easily. And I can think, where do I want to invest more capital right now? Where can I get the best quote unquote return? And some of that return is now beyond just a piece of real estate, because I don't have to, there's no repair and maintenance on books.
Mhm.
And also, if I have a bunch of those books out, it might increase my authority. And if that happens, it's going to increase the perception of trust with other people, which means probably more people are going to do business with me. So if I'm in the real estate game and I'm looking for investors, or I'm looking to grow my portfolio, that might be a really good way to invest time in a down market on creating another asset that will help you create more assets.
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many tangential businesses that are associated with real estate. And, I think the more we learn, just the better positioned we are to be able to take advantage of opportunities, whether it is, traditionally buying a property or in a business that's related to real estate. Richard, thank you again for your time and for your insight. Always appreciated and great to connect with you.
Likewise.